Whether you're home or away, stay connected to your team with T-Mobile, the network that covers 99% of people in America. They've been investing billions to light up their best network ever. From your backyard to a sold-out stadium, get T-Mobile's best coverage yet. Plus, with T-Mobile, you get a price lock guarantee, so they won't raise the rate of your talk, text, and data, ever. There's never been a better time to switch. Visit your local T-Mobile store today. Coverage not available in some areas. Price lock exclusions like taxes, fees, select promos, and third-party services apply. See T-Mobile.com.
Hail Cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like this is wildcard continued. Our series of podcasts about fantasy wildcards. And that's okay. Last week, you and I, we bucked the trend amongst our sort of circle of friends, right?
Had a good laugh.
Yeah. They played their wild card and we didn't. We had Liverpool players. That was great fun.
Yep.
And here we are, one game week later. Both of us have played our wild card in game week 27. So I feel like we've got to unpack this quite a bit. Why did we play them? What are the results which are interesting?
Yeah, it's time for us to put on the clown noses and talk about what just happened here. For some reason, you and I are both in good moods. I don't know why. The weather's getting warmer here in New York.
Daylight savings. We've got more sunlight later in the evening, which always makes me happy. Yeah.
Energy's better. I don't, the NCAA tournament just announced their bracket. That always puts me in a good mood. So it's not fantasy that's putting me in a good mood, Brandon. I'll tell you that much right now. So I've wildcarded. It's gone terribly. I was 10K overall. So, I was 10,015. So just about right on the cusp of.
We round 10K. Down on the Always Cheating podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So I rounded down to 10K. I am now at 17K. So, and so, to a certain degree, 7,000 spots, not that much. From another perspective, I've lost, 67% of my rank. Right? It's a pretty significking drop.
Imagine if that were body fat, though, Josh. You'd be loving life. You'd be like, wow, I'm like so fit.
You would have assumed there was some sort of Finner-esque curse put on me, Brandon. But it was So it didn't go great. I think what was annoying to me was how much time I put into the wild card. I really, really thought it through. I really had a plan, and that's why I'm not so upset right now. It was not like a thing I decided, unlike you, to do with like an hour before the deadline. I sort of jumped in there. It was the same result. So I don't really know. I don't really know. I put in time. It didn't work. You didn't put in as much time, and it didn't work. So we're kind of in the same. I think you were just more on the fence about it. I think. Yeah. But it just So I think I kind of knew right away, and I think that first match if Mo Salah had just turned around and booted the ball backwards towards Alisson, I think that ball, he would have been about as close as he got to scoring as he did with his penalty kick. It was, he hit that ball as hard as a human's ever hit a football. Didn't even get close to the net. I think it is now in orbit. It achieved escape velocity when it left his foot.
Is it a little bit like, just to bring in yet another American sport into the conversation, when a pitcher walks the hitter? When somebody steps up to bat who's notorious for hitting dingers, hitting home runs, and the pitcher's like, we're better off just putting this person on home base. So they just toss the ball well beyond home plate, walk the guy. It's basically what Mo Salah did to the entire goal frame. Yeah,
it's first base, by the way, not home base.
Home base. Yeah, you can tell. It's been a while since I've watched a baseball game. I can tell you that much. Yeah. So, we've still got a handful of matches yet to play in game week 27. Are you feeling? Where are you at on the I'm feeling cursed to there could be an optimistic way of looking at this on that spectrum?
Well, I don't feel that optimistic because I look around all the teams that are kind of in my little rank bubble, and they all have as many players as I do going into Wednesday. I would need McAllister, I suppose, to really go off. It would be helpful if Ivan Toney did anything. Missed a header on Saturday. Would have been nice if that had gone. I mean, lost the clean sheet with the Brighton defense 2 minutes into that game. That was a toughie. The red card for Casemiro today was a killer because basically I made a gamble, which was I wanted to really set myself up to go all out for 29, right? 12 teams played twice until 29. I wanted to be totally ready to go for it in bench boost. And so my thinking was I'm going to try to see if I can get away with not having Harry Kane. And I am going to go all in on having Bruno Fernandes and Mo Salah. And I hope that Harry Kane, because Spurs have been playing that well recently, that Harry Kane will have another quiet match, does not tend this season to get into double digits. And I think maybe I can get away with it. And that, Bruno at home to Southampton and Mo Salah away to Bournemouth. Now, sure, Liverpool have not been as good away, but they just won 7-0 6 days before, right?
They should be in the zone, man.
They should be in some kind of zone, and they don't need us to tell you how poorly they played in that match. And then so he gets 0, and instantly the second that penalty doesn't go in, I know for an absolute stone fact that Harry Kane is scoring at least 13 points in the later match. That's just the universe has told me that with that missed penalty. It's a guaranteed, it's a certainty. So I was kind of mentally ready for his first half 13 points. I mean, if anything, I feel lucky that I didn't get any more than that in that match. Then later on, Haaland, who was the one I sort of opted for over Kane, partially because I thought they could both do something in game week 27, but I also felt like I really wanted Haaland for game weeks 30 and 31. Man City have these really strong matches, or really easy matches in 30 and 31, and I want to captain him for those.
On wildcard, Haaland, it's just most elegant. It's easy to just carry Haaland through on a wildcard, because if you drop him, the most elegant way to bring him back in is via a wildcard, because he is so expensive, and because we've all accumulated so much team value through him. You sell him and then try to bring him back through a free transfer or a -4. You're looking at team surgery. And with the second wild card of the season, the last thing you want to have to do during the last 10 game weeks of the season is surgery.
Yeah. And we'll see. I probably will anyway, right? Like this is how it goes with injuries and all that stuff. But so it didn't work out, but I felt like I had a plan, so be it. And I think that the plan is it's a 3-week plan, right? The plan is to have a team that's kind of all in for game week 28, or all in for game week 27, free hit in game week 28, and then bench boost in 29. So that is still the plan. And I think we can look back to game week 26 wildcarders. Those squads are looking a lot better right now, right? There's a lot of players that they brought in, especially people who are not planning to free hit in 28, because they tend to have Kane, Arsenal players. Now, granted, a lot of those Arsenal players were benched. It turned out the move really was to bench boost in 27, which was a move that I really wouldn't. I'll be quite honest. It's not something I necessarily would have advocated for, but it's kind of already been a hit no matter what happens in the second half, with these Wednesday matches. So, good on everyone who did that. It was a good, it was an effective strategy. It really worked out. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't feel great, but I have McAllister. Going for him over March has worked out so far. I don't know. Let's see what happens. Now, how about you?
Let's not get into this whole Solly March business, Josh. That's like
no.
Was it an own goal? Was it not?
I don't want to totally get into it, but could you tell? It's like I could never quite see an angle that told me one way or the other.
I couldn't tell. Couldn't care less. But that's just all.
We don't have him.
We don't have him. So sorry, you came to the wrong podcast. So I was hemming and hawing about the wild card. Going into the game week 27 deadline, ultimately chose. I decided to play it. We had our Patreon podcast on Thursday night, in which we kind of talked through various options, and I had two paths that I could walk. One was the more passive, I really like my team, and I'm looking just at the game week in front of me.
Yep.
Or I could walk the other path that was actually, I accept that FPL is a game, and sometimes you have to make choices that don't necessarily sit well or coincide with your view of what you're actually watching on the pitch.
Yep.
Ultimately, how I justified this wild card is I really wasn't that interested, if at all, in playing the Brentford-Brighton doubles in 27. What I was mostly interested in was the bench boost in game week 29, because 29 is going to be, bar none, the biggest double game week of the season. This is our best opportunity to load up and play that bench boost with as many doublers as possible. The blanks in game week 28 meant that you would have to play the wild card in 27, because to try to wild card in 28 with all these blanks, it would be really messy. You'd probably make a couple of compromises. So I guess the compromise for 27 that I made with this outlook was I had very few Brentford and Brighton players. What do we always say, Josh? The goal of fantasy is to have good players from good teams. Now, right. I concede that Brentford and Brighton aren't your average mid-table teams. They've been quite good this season. But I just feel like there's been, throughout this season, far better value for points on teams like Newcastle, Arsenal, and some players on Manchester United. And I know you agree. So I just didn't want to have to be carrying so many Brentford and Brighton players. So on this wild card, I went for 2 Brighton in Lewis Dunk, which was a budget consolation, and Matoma, and then I brought in Tony as a captain. Now, if we go back in hindsight, if I didn't play my wild card, what move would I have done? I would have gotten rid of Harry Kane to bring in Tony as kind of a shield move to try to protect myself from everyone who was going to be captaining Tony in that top 100K range.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm sitting on 44 points with 3 players left to go. I'm on a red arrow. I've lost about 16,000 in OR rank. I'm sitting around 58,000. So it's like I feel content, I guess I could say, with how this week is going, because I kind of just want to hold the line until we move into a free hit 28 and that bench boost in 29. That's when the people who wildcarded in 26, the people who haven't, us, all will be revealed come when we come back from that international break. That's when it's really going to happen. And I think that if you haven't gotten a green arrow, if you haven't gained ground, and if you've only lost a little bit of ground in game week 27, that's okay. If you've gained a lot through having Harry Kane and captaining, I don't know.
Anyone but Tony.
Then hats off, and that is a huge win, and you need to just like keep pushing.
Yeah.
But I feel like I and you and I both can make up with even more once we hit 28 and 29.
Yeah, I think that's a really optimistic take on it. I mean, really, there's no reason not to be otherwise. We've already the die is cast. We've played the wild card. There's really no way that I could not free hit in 28, because I've already. It would require me to basically drop for massive point hits all the players that I brought in to have, because they double in 29. And so I've sort of, I'm committed to this strategy now. And so the only, answer is to be optimistic. And so that's what I'll choose to be. And so I feel, and there's the 32, which is this kind of blank game week coming up. And I feel actually reasonably set up for that already. I've got 8 players who will play in that one. So I feel like I sort of solved that problem as well. And so in some ways I feel very locked in for like the next 5 weeks. It's barring any massive injuries, it's like, okay, this is my plan. Let's see what happens. Getting the 0 from Mo is the only thing that really I'm struggling with, because it was Mo or Kane. And I just thought, and I think the Mo thing, it's people can congratulate themselves on it, or on avoiding him on the wild card, and congrats if he did. I mean, obviously I'd rather have points than 0 points, but you want your players to be taking penalties. That is a good spot to be. It was a 1-0 match at that point. And the player who'd scored, Billing, was on a yellow card. So very likely that if Salah scores that goal, that he is on a goal and max bonus for the match.
Maybe Salah doesn't exactly have a great history with BPS, but I don't recall where he was in that match.
But I'm just saying that it would have been a 1-1 with the other goal scorer being on a yellow. There's a good chance he's on 2 or 3 bonus, in that situation, assuming that would be the final score. And so then it's a 9 or 10 point swing possibly with that. And so it's not. I'm not trying to retroactively. I guess I am trying to at least like explain that like the difference between how well he hits a ball in one little spot has a major impact on how my game week looks right now. And I think that it's important to remember that though, because, it doesn't take much to turn a bad game week into a good one or vice versa. And, so there's no point in getting incredibly upset about stuff that just didn't quite pan out,
Nor do I think anyone should beat themselves up on it because, hey, I'm smiling big because at least I got Mo's 21 points from last week, and I salute myself in the mirror every morning when I brush my teeth. But you're exactly right. Like the form that Spurs were in, it seems like the relationship with Conte is just decaying at a more rapid rate. They aren't scoring many goals, and compared to the hope we were all filled with, and it just now it really does. It's revealed itself to be entirely false hope. This resurgent Liverpool, they still have all the problems that they had prior to that Manchester United match, which is disappointing just from a fan perspective.
Yeah,
but I think that was the right call. Yeah. Salah over Kane. It just had it had the better FPL pick written all over it to me.
Yeah, I mean, once he went off in the Man United match, I mean, the thing is, I think these late period Klopp sides, they tend to be at their best against good teams, right? They sort of, it's like they've won. I mean, they're just a very successful. They've a huge run, right? They've kind of won basically everything that I mean, I don't know. Have they won an FA Cup under Klopp? I don't think they have, but they've won. They've made 3 Champions League finals. They've won. They won one of them. They won the league. Like this club is already there, right? They've already kind of done it, and there needs to be a lot of turnover, obviously, in this squad. And then you have these kind of players who are sort of getting their feet wet a little bit, and probably are a little bit better at home. Players like the Gakpo and Darwin. But I think that they can really be at their best, and everything can sort of click still when they're playing the absolute best teams. And so maybe that augurs well for Game Week 29 because they have 2 tricky matches in 29. Yep. I think they play away to City and away to Chelsea. But for a club like Liverpool, I don't necessarily see that as a huge negative. They may actually be a little. If FPL fantasy wise, I think that you're not necessarily in a bad spot with those matches.
And if anyone is keeping score in their head, it is Mo Salah. Whenever he does a post-match interview, he knows every record that he's either set or on for. He is playing the Premier League as a video game, and I love him for it. And I know he is going. Everybody knows this, but he's going to want to make up for that missed pen, which is really quite problematic in Liverpool's chasing of the top 4 Champions League positions. So there's a lot of ground to make up, and Mo's going to have to repent for that missed pen, I think.
Well, let's move on from our wild card talk for now, Brandon. This is my show note here says we check in on our catastrophic wild cards. That's what we've done. Although I think you and I put a quasi positive spin on it.
We tried.
I wanted to, let's snap our hands here, look ahead, try to be a little more positive. I just for fun snapped together a very quick free hit squad for Game Week 28. Just to sort of get the ball rolling a little bit. For anyone who doesn't know, there are quite a number of teams, or as we've forgotten, there are quite a number of teams who do not play in Game Week 28. That includes Man United, Man City, and others. You can look it up. A lot of Brighton, quite a number of squads don't play.
Fulham, Liverpool, and West Ham.
Fulham, Liverpool, and West Ham.
Sorry, all you Ben Rama owners out there.
Yeah. So, and many of the squads who don't play double in Game Week 29, and so it's a slightly tricky time for a lot of managers, and that's one of the reasons that you and I have decided to play our free hit. And so, but the matchups are like, I actually think in some ways the question will be which 3 do you triple up on with some of these squads. I think that's certainly true of Well, it's certainly true of Arsenal. I think you could make a case for Newcastle and Spurs and Chelsea as well. So, but let's. Well, actually, why don't we go through these a little bit first? So we have a Friday night match. We have Forest play Newcastle. These are some of my favorite matches, Brandon, and you know why? It's because we get daylight savings time just that little bit earlier here in the United States than they do in the UK. So instead of you and I having to wake up for 10 a.m. matches, and there's not even an early match this weekend. It's incredible. The first match will be at 11 a.m. on Saturday. I
have no reason to get out of bed is the problem, Josh. I need a reason to get out of bed.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, and well, I've got a 6-year-old, so I'll be up anyway. But so we have 11 a.m. matches, but first you have a 4 p.m. match on Friday, March 17th. And I just realized, Brandon, we're going to be together watching the NCAA tournament during that game. So we may have to.
It's going to be action-packed.
We have to third or possibly fourth screen. I actually hate when there's a Premier League match on during NCAA tournament. It's like in general, I am a Premier League first, second, and third kind of guy, but the NCAA tournament is the one thing that supersedes my.
I'm expecting to see you with pit stains. I feel like you're going to be sweating profusely by the time this day is done.
That's how I like to play. That's how I like to watch. So
leave it all out on the court, he says.
Leave it all out there, exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to make the mistake I made last year of I don't know why I'm telling this story, but our friend Trevor and I decided that we should go to one of these new stores and get ourselves a vape pen before watching the NCAA tournament, and won't be doing that again. Did not enjoy that experience at all.
Too much input.
Fun to try. Yeah, exactly. There's too much going on already. I was sluggish and I was up and down. It's all over the place. Yeah. But Friday at 4 we have Forest host Newcastle, and then we have a big block of matches on Saturday. Villa hosts Bournemouth, Brentford Leicester, Southampton Spurs, and Wolves Leeds. And then the final match, which is at 1:30 here in the U.S., is Chelsea Everton. Everton scoring that goal in the first minute. I knew the second that goal went in, I was like, oh, great. This match is 1-0 written all over. It's going to be 89 minutes of nothing. It actually ended up being kind of an exciting match. There was a lot that happened in that match for a 1-0. It was mostly Brentford. I mean, Brentford were all over it in that game. But,
Brentford, the only Brentford players who scored this weekend, sadly, though, were Ben Rama and Ollie Watkins. So you had to play for Brentford in the championship back in the day in order to score this weekend.
Ben Rama was I forget that he was a B at one point.
Mm-hmm. Lots of Bs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the final match, there's just one match on Sunday, and that is Arsenal hosting Crystal Palace. And I think that is really where I'm going to be focusing my energy, is figuring out how many, well, obviously you can only have 3 on a free hit, but which 3 which 3 Arsenal players to get on a free hit, I think is a pretty tricky question for this one.
Yep.
I don't plan to bring him in, but I do wonder if Gabriel Jesus will start in this match. And a quick shout out to a player who is probably unownable in fantasy, but has been really awesome for Arsenal, which is Leandro Trossard, a hat trick of assists today. Mm-hmm. And just like low key, I don't think anyone was, I mean, I say this as an Arsenal supporter. I didn't have a problem with it, but I was not seriously enthused about the Trossard signing. It was like, okay, sure. He's like a very strong backup option for the left wing and maybe at forward if you really need him there. And I mean, would they be first in the table right now if it wasn't top of the table if it wasn't for him? I'm not sure they would be.
He's given meaningful contributions that you can see both in the FPL results and on the pitch too, which I agree, because when Trossard, right before he left Brighton to come to Arsenal, he was having issues with De Zerbi, and he was a want-away. And sometimes you don't want the want-aways to come to your squad because you're like, well, is this guy just like a whiny brat? Is he just trying to get paid, or is he a glory hunter? Can he not get along with anyone? And here we are. I agree. But yeah, with Jesus being back, Jesus' worst nightmare would be, the team has just gotten along. I mean, I don't know if they've been playing slightly differently to when Jesus was, at his best in the team, still getting results at the same clip. And
it's like they might just want to bring him up the bench a couple times, right?
Yeah,
it's like
right. I think so.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up what's happening. Thankfully, they've got the Europa League, so that'll be a chance for him to maybe get a couple of like a start in.
That's right.
They have I think it's 2-2 going back to the Emirates for the second leg of their match with
Sporting Portugal.
Yeah. So
Sporting
that'll be.
CP.
Yeah, Sporting. Yeah, exactly. So that maybe that's a chance for him to get some minutes. And yeah, but I mean, obviously, it's also a good problem to have. Like, when do you play Gabriel Jesus? So anyway, so that's what we've got this weekend. And I just put together a very quick free hit squad here, Brandon. But this is I don't even want to pretend that I'm married to it. But just to give you a sense of I really am not. But just to give you a sense of
I think it looks good.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it looks great. Honestly, it looks pretty awesome. But I think I can imagine it changing a lot over the next couple of weeks. But just to give you a sense of what the kind of team you might want to put together on a free hit, I've got Kepa in goal. So Kepa's back, Steele 1 pointer. But maybe Steele will come through from you, Brandon, in match 2. Let's see what Steele's got.
It's time for real Steele to emerge.
The real Steele, exactly. Yeah. Then I've got Henry could have scored on the Everton match.
Sure could
Trippier,
have.
Trippier. I think Trippier is a even though Newcastle have been a little disappointing, I think defensively the last few weeks. No, I think about it, they have been. I think that Trippier is still a must own for that Forest match. Gabriel. Mr. Goal Scorer on my bench this week will not be coming off, sadly. And then Ben Chilwell, who is Chilwell's certainly one that I'm not necessarily married to, but he's in there for now. And then across the middle, I went with kind of the tried and true with Arsenal at the moment. So I've got Martinelli and Saka there, and then so it's Gabriel Martinelli. And Saka.
Martinelli's back, baby. He went away in our FPL thoughts, and shame on us for giving up on him.
No,
he's so good.
I know. I mean, again, I'm not complaining because I've had a great season, but it's so frustrating that I held on to Kane for so long, and then the minute I drop him, he gets 13 points. I held on to Martinelli, and what did he score in that double game week? Like 76 points or something like that. He was absolutely amazing. And so, it just goes to show you got to hold on to your blue chip stocks, Brandon. Or sometimes it's or just
good players and good teams.
Exactly, and especially if they represent some value, like Martinelli. I sold him for a loss. So anyway, Martinelli's back. Saka, who blanked, but I mean, come on, like that's just. I mean, Saka's had a great season, and those blanks are going to happen. And then Son is the one who is the little maybe, and it's not that I feel hugely enthusiastic about it, but Southampton will have played. A very frustrating 90 minutes today in the Man United match. They play again at midweek, and so then when they play Spurs, it'll be the third time that they have played in a week. And this squad is not exactly bursting with a ton of squad depth, right? And so I think that it could be a good time for Spurs to play them. So I've gone with the Son Kane double up, and then I've got don't look at the captaincy because that's just a holdover from this week. But I've got I'm planning to captain Kane at the moment. I've got Kane, Tony, and Watkins as my front three. And congrats to you for bringing in Watkins on your wildcard. That's like the one thing that really worked out well. It seems like
it did work, and that is again a symptom of let's just look ahead to game week 29 and Villa do double. Yep. They have 2 away fixtures, but Chelsea and Leicester, and Leicester with face going off with a humiliating double yellow. There was like a few weeks there where Wout-Face was saving the Leicester defense before the World Cup happened. And now
but he's really done a Wout-Face since then, hasn't he?
Well played, sir. Yeah, he looks like he might be the worst center back that the Premier League has seen in some time. So I love having Watkins right now. It's funny, like my wild card team actually plays very nicely in game week 28, except I'm only able to start 11 guys. Do I want to just save a free hit and blank 3 players? No, I do not want to do that because I think the blanks so that we kind of like.
So you have 8. You have 8 right now, and then if you did a free transfer, you get to 9. Gosh, you have to think about it. I guess the annoying thing would be you'd have to go from Kane to Haaland, or from Haaland to Kane, right?
Yeah, and that just disrupts the whole idea of the wild card to begin with. I built for 29. Why am I going to take one of those players out? And I just felt like this is the smoothest way to transition from 27 to 28 to 29, and we fingers crossed nothing goes haywire during the international break. Not leaving a lot to chance here, but I just don't see why I would play that way and then drop one of these guys just for this game week 28 opportunity. I would definitely I foresee maybe burning points for an upcoming blank, but not 28. So I'm looking to play a free hit just to bring in 3 starters and fill out my bench, which would also be non-existent. So I'm into that. And Kane I wholeheartedly agree, is the ultimate free hit player and one whom you would captain. And then Chelsea is the team that I am thinking a lot about with respect to free hit, because it's like they're coming off of a pretty strong win against Dortmund in the Champions League to win that tie. Finally, get a decent win in the Premier League this weekend. Is there any sort of form building there so that we could actually bring in an attacking asset? And I think like when you've got Son here, I won't quibble with it too much, but Son really doesn't fill me with any great joy. I don't know why a Chelsea midfielder would.
I know. I was
going to
say you bring in a Chelsea midfielder forward and tell me how it goes, because I would not be doing that. I mean, even Joe Felix. I mean, it's for all his promise, he's blanked in every match. So, I mean, I know he scored an offside goal today, but blanked in every match since that Fulham match when he got the red.
Yeah, but it's once more with feeling. Spurs love playing Southampton. You remember that glorious 9-0? It's always the Kane and Son show. So why not? It's one for the old heads. The Kane and Son double up for this free hit. Yeah,
I mean, I think a few teams have dropped some 9-0s on.
Leicester did.
Yeah, Man United. All right, well, that's what I'm looking at right now. Lots more to come. Do want to do a couple quick Patreon shout out and some thank yous. Thank you to our newest Patreon supporters: Danny Collins, Krister Nagel, and Zach Edwards. I like this nice, steady Patreon growth, Brandon.
Steady flow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, steady flow. And should we mention, by the way, that we're going on the 6 Love 6 tomorrow? I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. For people who are in the know, the BBC 606 call-in show, they have a fantasy show hosted by Alistair Bruce Ball and Chris Sutton, Premier League winner and Golden Boot winner as well. So Josh and I are recording Fantasy 606 tomorrow, Monday morning, and it'll be hitting podcast streams later in the week. Really excited about that. Can't wait.
I'm excited too. 6 Love 6, by the way, is a reference to their Wimbledon coverage. They do. They used to do this thing where John McEnroe would go on and take questions for an hour, and it was so wonderful. It was about as fun as you'd expect it to be, which was extremely all these very polite British people calling it, and John McEnroe just being like his classic like ugly American, but leaning into it, and that kind of fun way that everybody.
That's
enjoys.
what we should do, Josh. We should be the ugly Americans. Is that the tone?
Yeah,
we should take?
Exactly. Well, by the time most people hear this, we'll have already done it. So listen to ours. Give us that DL baby, and then or the stream, whatever. Same thing nowadays. And then pop over there and check that out. We'll obviously share it out on our socials as well. But back to Patreon for a second. Patreon.com/alwayscheating is where you can go to support the pod and get on that Discord. Everyone was very kind to me on the Discord today. I was a little worried about that. People were not as kind on Twitter, but Brandon, that goes with the territory, and you just mute and block and you move on,
Absolutely.
And that's very rarely do I have to tell somebody to go F themselves. Otherwise I just try to keep it clean and block and mute,
These are
every time you got to
dangers.
drop one to remind people that's potentially there.
Yeah. Drop one and then let the other one go, and you tell them Josh sent you.
Exactly.
But yeah, you put yourself out there. You got to know that sometimes you'll run into some bad people. My wife this weekend said Christopher Walken was somebody she would not want to run into in a dark alleyway, and that took me back. I always feel like Christopher Walken, crazy as he may seem, he does seem like a nice grandfatherly sort of a guy. Maybe I'm just picturing his character in Pulp Fiction. But do you find Christopher Walken scary?
Not at 80 or whatever old he is now. Maybe like around the time he was doing that Fat Boy Slim video. Remember that?
Sure.
Yeah, that's Weapon of Choice. Maybe then a little bit, but That was when he was in kind of his like deranged CEO phase. That was sort
in
of
his
like,
block and mute phase.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was a few years before he was in Batman Returns. I mean, that was a scary version of him. So maybe that's what she's thinking of. Remember, he's Selena Kyle's boss in Batman Returns.
Yeah, he is responsible for birthing Catwoman to a degree, some might say.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah, a lot of deaths on his hands, including his own later on in that movie. Spoiler alert. All right, well, let's take a break, and we'll get back. We're going to answer some questions about Game Week 28 and beyond.
Hey, listeners, did you hear that a Lionel Messi trading card recently sold for more than $500,000 on Golden Auctions? Golden is the leading and most trusted destination for some of the most significant pieces of sports and pop culture collectibles, and, better yet, it's not just for high-ticket items. Golden's new always-on marketplace and weekly auctions start at just $5. That means collectors of all kinds can enjoy the same quality, convenience, and seamless user experience that Golden is known for. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, grade, or vault, Golden has something for everyone. Your one-stop destination for the love of collecting. Hey, let me put it to you this way. Over the last 3 recent market crashes, sports cards have held stable value. While the S&P 500 fell by an average of nearly 17%, and bonds took a small hit, sports cards actually saw overall positive returns. Interested in selling your collectibles? Now is the time to do so. Golden is offering no marketplace fees for items under $10,000. List your items on Golden's marketplace now to enjoy this limited time offer. Head over to golden.co to get started. That's golden.co, GOLDIN.co.
All right, Brian, we're back. We've got some listener questions about Game Week 28, so let's jump right into it. We've already talked a little bit about the fixtures. Just a reminder, though, there is that Friday kickoff. I like to remind people a couple times because every week it sneaks up on some people. So you have that Forest-Newcastle match at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, March 17th. There's also St. Patrick's Day, Brandon, so you could be out carousing with your mates and miss out on this.
You could be looking for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and maybe that pot of gold will be a Bruno Guimaraes hat trick.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows? It's like what's that? There's that Lion. I don't think you watched Hard Knocks when the Lions were on there, but
I have not. No.
Sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel is a freight train. And that's Brandon. What could happen if you miss this deadline? So, Timbo says. I'm just going to go through these in order, okay? So this is a real mailbag style one we got here. Timbo says, "Can we trust the Chilwell hype?" Ben Chilwell, goal scorer Chilwell.
Why not? I mean, he's started. Let's see, how many matches has he now started in a row? He started against Southampton in Game Week 24 after fully coming back from injury. Then it's been all starts from there. Spurs, Leeds, and then Leicester, and he's got 2 attacking returns in his last 2. That wonderful goal on the volley against Leicester this weekend, and an assist against Leeds. And with Reece James out with illness, or just out with he's got a case of the Reece James, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Chilwell to me is the highest ceiling, best upside fullback pick of 28. Agree or disagree?
I tend to agree. I'm surprised I didn't really more seriously consider Chilwell. It was thrown out to me by a couple of people, and I'm just struggling with Chelsea right now. I feel like I got a little bit of a block with them, where it's just hard. I mean, Kepa's been very solid, but the rest of the team, the defense has been really rotation prone, and obviously up front they haven't really been able to score. So it was just really hard for me to kind of feel excited about bringing in Chilwell, but obviously missed opportunity there. So I think that. I think he's a great option for 28, and then honestly, if you even if you're not for hitting a really strong option for 29 as well, because they have the double in 29. I think both those matches are at home, right? Yeah, they are. They play Villa and Liverpool both at home in 29. So even though those matches are not necessarily matches where you would completely expect them to keep a clean sheet in both them, because you really would be buying him for his attacking returns anyways. He's not even that expensive. It's not like you're buying like a $7 million Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think Chilwell's available for 5.8, so it's a reasonable price.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
You think about the other defender with the high ceiling that's available in 28 is Kieran Trippier, and we've got this thing with Forest where they just refuse to die at home.
Yeah.
It's an incredible record at home, and you'd like Forest to probably score against Newcastle. So it's just like an interesting. I will be playing Trippier, if not Trippier plus Botman. I think double Newcastle is an interesting gamble. Now, given what I just said about Forest, maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but.
Did you bring in two Newcastle? Wait, you did then? You brought in Botman and Trippier?
I've got the Botman riding my bench. I guess it just generally, this is all like free hit centric talk. Why would you play more than 3 defenders on a free hit? I feel like it's push all those picks up to the midfield and the forwards, right? Four at the back makes no sense.
I got a 4-3-3 on my free hit right now, so I guess I disagree with you.
All right. Okay. All right.
I mean, right now I've got Chilwell, Gabriel, Trippier, and Henry. Feels like a pretty solid back four. I mean, Henry could turn into somebody else. I have Almer on first bench on this free hit team. So
you're going to be sick of the sight of Rico Henry by the time you lock your free hit.
That's so true. It's but Brentford are so good at home. I don't know. It's like do I do another week where I go against the Brentford Empire at home. It's like, just trust them at home. Don't trust them away. I mean, Ivan Toney, I still feel okay with as a pick because his returns all season have been pretty strong home and away. But God, if you just scored that header, Brandon, that's what I'm talking about earlier. These narratives change so fast. A couple little moments.
So many headaches.
Yeah, so many headaches. All right. Leisure Rule says, how worried should we be about Man United assets?
I to a degree, I feel like Manchester United is sort of coming back, reverting to the mean, I guess you would say, a little bit. The excitement and enthusiasm exploded around Manchester United. I mean, rightfully so. They were playing really well, sometimes on the back of Marcus Rashford's goal-scoring form, which is like kind of a full, from the defense through the midfield to up front, like full team performances. And it was so shocking because it was in stark contrast to what we saw at the very start of Ten Hag's regime. I don't think anybody believed for a second that Manchester United were going to win the Premier League and they're going to run at this like quadruple with the Europa League. So
I think some Man United supporters probably thought they were going to win the Premier League.
And sure, I don't want to take that from anyone, Josh. That's what being a supporter is all about.
Right.
But honestly, this does feel like a reality check in a real way where it's not like Manchester United are suddenly going to go back to being appalling and can't win a match. They had a really poor matchup against Liverpool. And then they just couldn't pull the finger out against Southampton. And they had the bulk of the opportunities, I think, even with Southampton down to 10 minutes. Just like shows you how absolutely dreadful Southampton are this season. But I'm not worried. I don't feel compelled to be tripled up on a team like Manchester United at this point. I mean, I feel like... to watch that match as a Bruno Fernandes owner, though, Josh, talking about the Southampton one, he had the fact that Bruno hit Bazunu saved his shot onto the post. It was so close to going in that it actually bounced off of the post to go the other direction out for a corner kick. That is as close as you can get to.
It was just a really. Yeah, and I brought in Bruno this week. I mean, it was just a really, really horrible game week. And I think that he credited that chance for Varane in the first half that Varane absolutely should have scored. I mean, Varane is like allergic to scoring though, and wasn't a good save, but also Varane could have done more with that ball. And,
he looks like he's too regal to score. Like scoring is just sort of like uncouth. He'd have to celebrate if he did that.
That's not what his job is.
It's
that's not what his role is. Yeah, I think that's right. But he, I mean, and so I feel good about Bruno. I feel fine about it, and it's just sort of and Shaw. I mean, look at it from another perspective. I mean, they kept a clean sheet even though they had to defend for 60 minutes. And Shaw got a yellow card, just another annoying thing that happened to my squad this week. But I feel fine about them. Sean Murphy says, "Is this the week to wild card?" I know you sort of said earlier that you didn't think. But obviously, you and I both wild carded now. So if I was just starting fresh right now, I don't think it's impossible or crazy. I think that it's the question would be whether the only real question is whether you would want to have a full 11 on a wild card right now. You might only want to have like 10 players. I think that's the one difference.
I just think you're better off free hitting. Like I think that the wild cards, the wild card strategy got right pre Game Week 28 was, this is how you're going to arrange yourself for a blockbuster Game Week 29. I think what the wild card strategy has gotten wrong thus far is pinning your short-term hopes to Brighton and Brentford. That's not gone as well as we would hope.
Granted, McAllister scored. Matoma got an assist and a bonus point. So
there's a way into that story. Sure. I won't argue with that. But like to go so strongly as triple up, whatever. We're not here to legislate the past. This is not this is not that kind of podcast. But what I'm trying to say is for me, the wild card's utility is building toward something else. And Game Week 28 is so fraught and full of holes that like you can't do it.
But it does.
You can.
But it does, obviously, if you wild card, if you free hit in 28, then it probably eliminates the bench boost for you as a viable option for 29, right? Because you maybe wouldn't have as many double game week players as you want to bench boost in that case.
Sure.
So that would be the argument for doing it.
Same, you can't wild card in 29 either for that reason, because you can't wild card and bench boost in the same week. So the answer to this question then is kind of like, what do you want to do for 29? And if you want to,
I think that's right.
So just look at yourself. Think about it.
I had a plan a couple weeks ago to just muddle my way through 26 through 28 and then wild card in 29. And in hindsight, that would have been a really great strategy. But let's see. I mean, again, let's not be so results oriented 1 week into a 3 week plan. Let's see what happens through 29, right? We've sort of set ourselves up for what will hopefully be a great 29, and we'll go from there. I think that EPL Joe says, how many players do you need this week so to not have to use your free hit? I'm going to throw out a number.
9 or 10, probably.
Yeah.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there.
No, I was gonna throw out a number and tell me if you agree with me. I was going to say 9. 9 felt right to me.
Yes, I think if you have 9 that you're happy with, and so again to bring it all back to me, Josh. One of my issues were that like the guys, the role players in my fantasy squad were guys like Sam Greenwood, doesn't play.
Yep.
Bueno, he's injured. He doesn't play. Tarkowski, cool. He gets 9 points today. Thanks for nothing, jerk. I just had to. So if you have 9, but of those 9, you've got weirdos like the Greenwoods and the Buenos of the world. Those don't count. I think you got to have 9 real players.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. It's not just coverage, like in terms of having 11. They have to be like me persisting with Bailey for a long time, and I was like, well, he plays in these matches. I'm like, great. So I'm getting 1 or 2 points from him. Like, I might as well not have a player out there. It makes such a small difference to my rank if he's out there. So, so you got to be a little careful too about who you burn points. Like I wouldn't burn points to drop a defender who doubles in 29 to get, because at that point, if you're burning points, you need more than 6, right? Otherwise you're just looking at 2 points, and like burning a transfer in the hopes that you can get a clean sheet and just net out 2 points, right? But most cases you're not going to, the majority, like the literal majority of matches, you are not going to have clean sheets, right? So even this is true even with the best defensive teams.
I don't know if I see a free hit in 28 as an opportunity to be big and to be really different and score a bunch of more points than other people. I think I'm just hoping to get back the 10 or 15 points that I feel like I've lost this week, perhaps. And I think if you can only get out 9 players, you're fine, because a lot of people are in really different wild situations, and I don't think there's going to be a huge. What percentage of the like top 100K are going to free hit in 28? Would you guess?
Of the top 100K, I don't know, like say 10 or 15.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So just again going back to the question of, I think you're kind of like, the strength of your team is a little relative, and you shouldn't think too much about it.
I'm more optimistic than you. I want to try to put together a free hit team that can. The question I have about a free hit is it an opportunity to go for a heavily weighted kind of strategy where you go with 3 defenders from one team or something like that, right? Like triple up on the Chelsea defense and just hope that Everton can't score, which is always going to be a struggle for them. Something like that is I think an interesting strategy. Not one you would do if you were wild carding, right? Most likely, but something you could do in a free hit because it's only a 1 week thing. And so that is something I'm going to think about a little bit more. And not to plug our Patreon too much again, but by Thursday, I feel like I'm going to have a much better sense of what I want to do with my squad. So let's table that until Thursday's pod. Drew M is an interesting question. Says, not counting the doubles this week, who is the most reliable Premier League team for FPL right now? It seems like you can't rely on anyone at the moment for consistent results every week.
But that's just I don't know. Did like Mo Salah? These players are so rare. Most recently, it was Mo Salah, maybe Harry Kane to a degree. When we first started playing fantasy, it was Robin van Persie, followed by Luis Suarez. The consistent players are like comets. They come along rarely, and they burn bright. Generally speaking, though, the fantasy is just not like you're hoping for like returns. 3 out of every 4 weeks is a miracle, I think. Yeah. So which is why Arsenal. That's why I kept triple Arsenal on my wild card, because they are, I think, the most consistent team for fantasy returns right now across the board.
Oh, I wish I could have even more Arsenal players. I totally agree. I mean, I think I'd like to have like 5. Give me 2 defenders and 3 midfielders. I feel like just long term, they really have been the most, especially with Gabriel Jesus back in form. That was that's one of those things too that you have to remind yourself on a wild card. Like I would have benched or dropped Odegaard this week. He would not have made my squad even if I hadn't wild carded. So
I wild carded and benched him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you had to make some really tough choices. I mean, I agree that it wasn't like an amazing double. At least it hasn't been so far for Brighton and Brentford. But I guess a good start for Southampton defenders if you went that way. But yeah, I think that it's. I don't know. I feel like it's.
You're getting Kyle Walker-Peters is what you're telling me right now. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I guess what I was going to say, I don't know, I'm like stumbling over this, but what I was going to say was just that you had to try. Like if they played twice, you had to have a few of these players, right? You had to go for it, and so that's why some of these benching decisions happened. I mean, Gabriel scoring and getting 14 points today. That's just a tough beat for anyone who benched him, self included. All right, so a couple more questions, Brandon. Actually, no, just one.
Just the one.
Like that? It's the one question. It was 3 paragraphs long, so I thought it was 3 for a second. But here we go. All right, a fitting final questions from James K. I think this is one of our producer patrons. Brandon, he says, "Is attacking the double no more than a false fallacy?" I think you just fallacy. I think false there, Brandon. No more than a fallacy this season. There are some big bench scores out this week, with many dropping Arsenal assets in favor of Brentford and Brighton, instead of backing the players to play for the best team. Wow, This is just like so ties in with the last conversation so nicely. He says, "I bench Gabriel for me." I think he means the player Ben me, Brandon, not himself.
That would be incredible. What a chip that would be.
To play yourself you play like a round of FIFA or something. You get to insert your score.
I love it.
And that'd be fun. Yeah. And he benched Gabriel for me and played Tony over Odegaard. So I'm guilty of this. Of course, it could still turn around in midweek, but at the moment it's looking like a wrong move. So are we? This is at this point, because we've had double game weeks seemingly nonstop ever since the restart, and it's unfortunately not going to be. I say unfortunately because I'm kind of like it's a slightly warped way to play the game, and I feel like it's fine. Like, it's a different kind of strategy. I don't want to sound too sour about it, but I'm ready for a normal week where I have 10 players, and the transfer that I make is just based on like an individual, like a specific matchup or a couple of upcoming game weeks. It's not just like, well, just in general, I wouldn't be bringing in Ivan Toney, right? Let alone captaining him, but because of the situation I did. And, but to me, that still feels like the right way to go, because Ivan Toney's really low-key had a spectacular season. And there's this like idea that he's a troll or whatever, but this is just how people feel about the kind of non-super A++ superstars, right? They think that they're all trolls because they don't deliver with exactly the same level of consistency. But he's enough of like a B+, A- fantasy asset that when he plays twice, it was really worth considering for the captaincy.
Here's what I want. This is like a real project that I am in no way capable of. Is like a historical look at double game weeks over the last decade, and what were they? And everyone, all different teams are making different decisions based on those doubles. But if there was a way to map out what the collective thinking was, or like the most transferred in and most captain players were in those double game weeks, and how often did it go sort of according to plan, or the way the transfer market was sort of like pointing it to go. Because I don't know how much of a fallacy double game weeks are. When they work out, they can work out like spectacularly well. Yeah. And we revisit this trope a lot. Like you remember the bad beats more than you always remember way the triple captain that doesn't go often. Ones that do. So I don't know. It's in our constant pursuit to beat the game. To do you remember that Donkey Kong documentary where they were trying to black screen some particular game? Like, that's in these old school 80s arcade box games. Like, you take the motherboard to its absolute limit, and then you just get a black screen. That's the end. Yeah,
you and I watched that amazing documentary together.
King of Kong is what it's called. Yeah, definitely seek it out. We're trying to do that with FPL. Double game weeks are like, I think the logic is pretty straightforward in terms of why we do it, what the upside is. I do think that it's always very concentrated, like to explore how to attack these doubles kind of like in a more limited scope, in a 1 to 2 week strategy, as opposed to these broad 6 to 8 week strategies, which all seem to like crumble like so much dust.
Yeah, like tears in the rain, Brandon.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like double game weeks. I'll go out and say it. I think I like them.
I think you like them more than I do. I'm just sick of this, like, I have all these good players that I have to bench. I mean, it's just what James is saying. It's like, I have all these good players that I have to bench and drop because I feel like I have no choice because the math is telling me. And ultimately, like you said, it usually does work out. But I guess it's just not like the way I want to play necessarily, right? Yeah. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm watching Arsenal and I'm just annoyed the whole time, because the good players that I brought in, and it's like the whole point of fantasy. It's not like we're playing for thousands of dollars here. The whole point of it is just to watch these matches and have feel like you've got a little extra stake in them, and it makes you feel a little more invested. And it makes everything feel a little more exciting. And it's a low stakes form of gambling, right? I mean, even if you're not playing for money, it's just you're sort of gambling on the outcomes. And and I think that it's so having to sort of put that aside in order to have an I'm going to use a dirty word here, right? But to have an optimal team for one of these double game weeks, it's just tiring. And so this is why I really think that like the best part of the fantasy season is like game weeks 1 through 12. That's the sweet spot, I think. And But
can you imagine?
It's fun. Yeah, it's all fun.
This version of FPL being played back in the day when people were mailing their picks into the newspaper, like through the post.
What would they have done during these especially with all the Queen's passing postponements? Like, it's just been.
They're lucky they didn't have a monarch die during that run of the mail-in fantasy. It may have ended Premier League fantasy as we know it. And post.
All right, let's Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too. Let's end on that note, Brandon. Thanks everyone so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. Thank you to everyone who does actively support the podcast now. If you're a supporter of the podcast and you have not got onto the Discord yet, reach out to us and we'll get you set up. I know some people are still, it's a little trickier than us just sending the code. You have to get it all linked together. They're supposedly making that easier now, Brandon. But anyway, it's if you have any issues, just send us an email and we'll make sure you get into the Discord and start using it.
There was another cool piece of news that dropped too for Patreon supporters, because we do that second ad-free podcast every week.
Right.
Spotify is now partnering with Patreon. So if you listen to your podcast on Spotify, you can get that Patreon episode on Spotify now as well, or anywhere else for that matter, which is very cool. So as we like to do every week, thanking our producer patrons at the highest tier, and that's Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, to Big Gaffer, Bob Iscoon, James Holland, Dave Wagner, Lodal, Nick Wright, Lazaros Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Rich Evans, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Lee Hickman, Vulgar Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, James Conroy Shellen, F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Paul Herzig, Heath Cram, Roberto Morals, Thomas Tislov, and Noah Louise. About halfway through that list, I realized I wasn't going fast enough, and I tried to pick up the pace
By the way,
little bit.
Noah and Louise, I saw producer patrons Noah and Louise today, Brandon. It was very nice. We saw them.
Shout out!
I was at a birthday party at Soccer Roof. In fact, the place where we had our meetup in the fall. Speaking of the Queen's passing, exactly.
Yeah, she's always in our minds, isn't she?
Very strong feelings about the weekend, but very, very nice to see those guys.
Yeah. All right, rate, review, subscribe, follow us wherever you get your social media. Go to our website, alwayscheating.com. Josh, I will see you on Fantasy 606 on the BBC Radio 5, I think it is. Yeah, so check us out on the Fantasy 606 stream this week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.